It's Dr. Parikh, and we're talking about the first chapter of Difficult Conversations. So these chapter talk-throughs, it's really just like how I would talk through in class, but instead of doing it in class, I just make a video that you can watch before you come, so that when you come, we're ready to talk about the content, and I don't need to give my opinions. So this first chapter, it's a starting point. It sets up a conflict, so it gives kind of an example of what a difficult conversation might be. And it talks a little bit about the theory behind the book. So it starts out with the example of Jack and Michael, and I think that we can really, I feel a lot of empathy for Jack. I had to keep track who was who. But I felt, I could identify with Jack. This idea of somebody asks you to do something, you give it your best effort, you go to a lot of work for them, and they're kind of a jerk back to you, is what it feels like. And we start seeing the idea of these tables, this kind of side by side, that there's what's happening in the conversation, and then there's some other layer of what's happening. So kind of some commentary or insight of what's happening. That's something that you'll see throughout the book, and it's also something that we'll kind of use for our video analysis papers. So it's the idea that, there's that underlying what's being said are thoughts and feelings, and that it really, the book kind of says it all comes down to a sense of emotions and identity. That it's not just what's about being directly talked about, there's some other stuff. It also plants the seed that there are different perspectives on what's happening here, that Jack and Michael see the situation, they have different views of what happened. So even just going through, okay, what's the timeline, what specifically happened, they might describe those things very differently. And so in order to have the same conversation, to be on the same page, you may disagree with the other person's view, but it's important to understand that that view is there and to try to get a sense of what that view is so that you can work to come to some sort of resolution. So we all kind of assume that our view is the truth, and we also make assumptions about what the other person is meaning to happen, and we want somebody to be wrong. And a lot of this class, a lot of the conversations we have about communication are going to be about how to try to take a more neutral stance, to diffuse a lot of that. So those three things are what the authors call the what happened conversation. Then they talk about the feelings conversation, which gets to that sense of how, what's going on, what am I feeling in the moment? And we'll actually look at feeling charts and do things like that to get a sense of what's happening. And then there's identity. What does this say about me, about how I'm being treated, about how I'm responding? The kind of person, am I responding? Am I being the kind of person I want to be here? So the authors break down those three main conversations. So the next chapters are going to go through those in a lot more depth. This chapter is a nice quick overview just to get a sense of the sorts of things that the authors are going to talk about and to get familiar with this idea of having a scenario and then breaking it down. So that's chapter 1. Thanks.